that we open the meeting.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hi, John. Hi, Russ. Thank you for attending.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
Really appreciate it. So, John, any update? Can you give us an update on Linden Ponds, how things are going? Oh, we can't hear you, John.
How about now?
Okay, yes.
Sorry about that. Things are going well. From an occupancy standpoint, we are about in the 95% occupancy range at this point in time. And, you know, continuing, obviously in this market, continuing to move in more people every day. Our goal by year end is effectively to be at 0 occupancy, which is a good thing. We have no, you know, I'll say plans this year or next of turning on any more units or building any additional buildings at this point. But, you know, we'll see kind of a, you know, consistent, you know, move-in strategy at this point through the end of the year. No major projects that impact our water usage at this point. So still things working steady, maintaining, you know, a lot of what we have, and, you know, communications seem to be good from our gatehouse with water, you know, both leaving here and obviously coming into the Hingham system. So
Thanks, Sean. I know that our contract at some point is coming to an end, and I think we had talked maybe the last meeting whether Linden Ponds is interested in talking about another contract or extending the contract.
So yeah, I did, you know, probably the last time I think we met in person, actually, we brought this up. I did float it by our legal team. And then obviously, I think, you know, everything kind of fell apart with the pandemic. But I'll pull back out that communication I had with the team just to see what the best approach is, whether it's kind of extend and amend based on, you know, name change of ownership, or if it makes sense to, you know, negotiate another contract. But I'll leave that up, you know, to our legal team to kind of figure out the best approach for that and circle back with the team.
Okay, but it does sound like you're interested in continuing the relationship with Cohasset Water Department.
You know, from my perspective, I don't see any reason not to. You know, obviously on a bigger plan, you know, if there's something else, you know, obviously between Cohasset and Weir River, you know, I'd definitely be interested in talking. But, you know, I think the you know, what we've had in place for the last, you know, 16 years, if you will, at this point, has definitely been a great relationship, and I see no issue with continuing that.
Okay, thank you, John. I think I feel the same way, at least. I'm only talking as one member of the commission, but I think our goal has been to sell more water to other towns to the extent there's a need. And I believe our relationship has gone well. Any comments, Steve or Lee, on that?
No,
No, I've been very happy working with Linden Ponds through the years. Miss our on-site meetings that we used to have.
Definitely.
It was great running into you in the hallway the other month.
I know it.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. And Russ, can you give us an update on Hingham or Weir River Water Systems, how that's going?
Sure. Everything's going pretty well. We had a little snafu with a little communication issue, but Steve and I and the fire chief worked that out. It's much better now. So we have the right, you know, avenue to take to make sure he's aware of what's going on. I did add him to the list of calls that needs to be made. And what was odd is the communication center in Hingham does get emails from us for every water main break. So I called up there just to make sure they're aware of what streets and what is Cohasset and what is Hingham. So we're going to make sure when we communicate with them, they're well aware of which town the main break is in, so they know which chiefs. And then I said, it's probably better just to contact all the fire departments. It's just easier, in my opinion, but that's up to them. You know what I mean? The break on Atlantic Ave was a pretty significant break. It took a long time to fix because of the heavy rains, but the guys got it done. They worked real hard in the rain, but they got it done. That project is moving forward. So the Atlantic Ave project went out to bid along with a few others, and the award should be going out in the next 2 weeks to replace all of Atlantic Ave, so we can stop having water main breaks on Atlantic Ave and Hull. Plus, Hull is redoing that entire road, so we got to get that done this summer into early fall so that they can move forward with that project that they have. The filters at the plant, 2 of them were completely rehab. We're almost done with number 4. Number 3, all the media was stripped out of it. New media was installed. We're getting a lot better flows through the filters. The CFFs are really good. The water quality is that much better. Number 4 has some minor repairs, which we're working on now. And once that's done, we'll put new media in that one. And then I already have plans for the fall to do the other 2. So hopefully by the end of 2021, fingers crossed, all 4 filters will be completely rebedded and all new media in them. Going on with hydrant inspections and things like that. And I'm probably going to hire Hoadley or someone to do the hydrants in Cohasset, because they haven't got there yet. And I just want to get them done for you guys. So the North Cohasset fire hydrants will be inspected hopefully within the next month. Steve, I think I promised you by the end of August. So that's my goal. It's still my goal. I'll make sure they get done. So that way there we can create a list of what hydrants need attention in Cohasset and then go from there. Besides that, the billing's going a little bit better. I know there were some issues with the sewer billing. So Brenda, I'm going to ask you how that's going. Is it getting better, or do I need to jump in again?
No. Actually, we finally got a workable file last week.
Okay.
And I was able to import it. Looked pretty good. I'm still waiting on the read-only billing system, so I don't have to keep contacting.
Okay. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, perfect. Thanks for bringing that up. So I had given it to Liz. I know you guys got your logins, but Liz at Hingham DPW has been really into it and working with it. And
Yep.
she finally got them back on the phone and said, I told you the permissions are wrong. And she was right. So they're working on that with her. Once she's up and running and she can get in, I just want to do it with one person, you know what I mean, Brenda, so that they know exactly what settings you all need and what you all need to access. And that way they can reset everybody at the same time. And then we should all be able to have access. So I'll follow up with that on my Friday meeting this week.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks, Russ.
No problem at all.
And Russell, thank you for being really proactive with myself and Chief Sylvia. That was really good. And it seems like you guys saw that issue pretty darn quick. So thank you for your proactive.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for your cooperation and working with us. One of the issues that we kind of flagged, or Brenda flagged, was kind of the transition from Aquarian to Weir River Water Systems and how the billing was going to work. And I thank you for working through that with us.
And please don't be satisfied. You know what I'm saying? If you guys need something else, just let them know and let me know. Don't a couple people said to me, oh, I'll just do it this way. And I'm like, no, do not settle for anything. We need to make sure it's what everybody needs. Do you know what I'm saying?
I will tell you this, that both Danny and I on our last conference call with them, we were adamant about the formatting.
Mhm.
And, we were told before, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. Well and behold, they did it. So
Yeah, and and just Brenda, between you and I don't think it's really Maria. I think it's more their IT department because they're so big. You know what I mean? And that's why with that last call we had, I said, look, I'm going to be the bad person today. I don't want to hear excuses anymore. I don't want to hear anything anymore. You guys have a contract with us. Just get it done. I don't care what it takes, who has to do it. Just get it done.
Yep.
And I had to be the bad person that day because I was getting tired of, the excuses. I don't like excuses.
Well, I feel a lot better now that I have actual readings in my billing to be able for the bills to go out August 2nd.
Okay, perfect.
Russ,
Okay, Russ, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
You're running a GAC system at your plant, right?
Yes.
When was the last time you changed the carbon?
We're doing it now.
You're doing it now. Okay.
So the filters have 3 or 4 levels of media, and one of them is carbon.
Mhm.
So number 3 has been completely replaced. Number 4, like I said earlier, has all been stripped out. All the media is out. We're doing some repairs on the floor. some repairs on the airlines, and then that's going to have all brand new media. And then September or October, somewhere in that range, 1 and 2 are going to be done. So, like I said, hopefully by 2021, we'll have all new media throughout the entire plant.
Okay,
Russ, am I correct in saying you have not been running in activated mode for a long time at this point?
I can't answer that. I'm sorry. That's more Darren's.
But when was the last
field.
time the media was changed?
Oh my God. I saw 2003. I'm
So
not sure, but
that-
that's
they-
what I saw in one thing.
Yeah, so you
Um,
guys haven't been running in activated mode. for
No, and
years.
the way I realized that was when you guys had the PFAS issue with that one well, I went to the plant and said, look, I want PFAS at the head of the plant. I want PFAS at the end of the plant. And we had no removal, 0. Now Hingham only has an 8 or a 6 at most times coming through the plant, but we had 0 removal. So I said, it's time to replace the media because that's going to help us get rid of that. You know what I'm saying? Did I lose you?
okay,
Okay. go
we'll
ahead.
get back to you about the cost of that, because I've been hearing the cost is relatively high from what we're looking into.
So
Another question I have is about the tank by Ware River Farm. Is rehabbing that in the plan coming up?
yes. So right now I'm having a tank siting analysis done. The hydraulic model hadn't been updated in several years. I don't even know how many years. So we did some flow testing where we calibrating the hydraulic model, and then we're looking to site a new tank. Once the new tank is up, which in my plan is in the next year or 2, then Turkey Hill will be taken offline and completely rehabbed. I do have some minor repairs on the schedule for this year to make sure, you know what I mean, on the base of it, a few of the bolts need to be replaced, but that's where that is right now.
Thank you.
No problem at all. The cost, you want to know what the cost is to replace the media?
The activated carbon.
Well, the media, it's all, like I said, it's
Yeah.
a whole series of medias, but it's the replace the entire media and the filters about $300,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks, John and Russ. Anything else?
No, unless you guys have any more questions, that's what I have for you guys.
Russ, what do you think the chances are that my fluoride that I found was related to your break that you found the next day?
Did you go back out there?
I haven't gone out and resampled yet.
When you go and resample, I want to send those guys out there because they were telling me they were exactly unsure where you got it. So if we could go together,
Yeah.
at least we both take a fluoride sample and then we'll go from there.
We haven't done it because it's been such wet weather. We're
Yeah,
trying
I
to do
know.
dry weather sampling, and it's been all wet weather sampling.
And we've had 3 main breaks in that span since I talked to you last, so we've been a little hectic. So, but let me know. Just definitely, we'll go out there with you, get a sample, and then if need be, we'll bring the leak detection guy in and have him check that whole area.
Will do.
All right, well, thank you, John. Thank you, Russ. I think we'll end at this point unless there's any other comments or interconnect meeting, and look forward to the next one.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Thanks.
Bye.
John.
Okay, so before we go to our next topic, we generally have like public comment in the beginning. I just want to make a very brief public comment, not as a commissioner, but as a member of the public. I myself had a big break in my water pipe coming to my house, which I've never experienced. I've been without electricity, which is no fun. Now I was without water, and I just want to say how great the water department was in helping me repair that. That was my responsibility. It was on my land, so I paid to get it repaired, of course. It took about 3 weeks because it was a fairly complex number of breaks. But in particular, Brenda was great, got Brendan and Connor out immediately. They turned the water off to stop the leak. And what they were able to do, which I was not aware of while I was in the process of getting this fixed, they were able to hook my house up to my neighbor's house through an outside spigot, which I didn't know they could do. But my neighbor luckily is very nice and allowed us to use their water, but they hooked us up probably about a 300-foot hose from my neighbor's spigot to my water meter to allow us to have water during the time I got this repaired. But it as everyone knows, not having power, it's not fun. Not having water is not fun. And Brenda in particular, and Brendan and Connor were just awesome in helping me through this while I got it fixed. So thank you.
Good job.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember when you guys were so great when they were having those problems on Forest Ave with their wells failing, and we were able to hook up to neighbors who had water for some of the people. We have a great group here.
We really do. And I want everyone at Woodard and Kern to know that. And I'm well aware of it, but this made it even more clear to me through a personal experience.
That's a good thing.
Okay, now we're on to 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. And I want to thank John Hallen for joining us. John, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I know it's important to get water to that building, and I'd like to give you a history of why the water has not been hooked up yet and discuss the most recent kind of letter we got and request from 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. Kind of in a nutshell, this has been going on for probably a year or so, where there was first a disagreement as to the water connection fee. That got resolved, and months ago, I'd say probably 6 to 8 months ago, we agreed upon the water connection fee. So there's no dispute on that. It's $141,000 and change. And that's agreed to. There's no dispute about it. And then we got a request that they could pay that over a year. We felt we didn't have the resources of the time to really chase it if the payments weren't made. And there's been some difficulty in the past with getting money in when people haven't paid. So we got a more recent request that the payment be over 4 months instead of a year. That was the first request. And so I responded to that request by saying, can you know, we're just interested in what remedy do we have if payment is not made in the 4 month time period. This is the full 141. And they said, John, the remedy was that you simply wouldn't issue a certificate of occupancy if they didn't pay. In my view, that doesn't really help us out, because what they could say is, okay, we decided not to pay in 4 months. And now a year or so later, we're going to pay you because it's time to get our certificate of occupancy. So
Good, I'm at a meeting, but yeah, that's all right. If you want to come back in about 30 minutes.
okay, so we got that back, and then we got another letter saying, well, the sewer commission gave a $250,000 break on the connection fee because they were doing some of the units as 40B. And then we got a letter from Steve Gomer yesterday, who heads up the Affordable Housing Committee in town, urging us to consider giving a fee break. My first thought was, we agreed months ago as to what the fee was going to be. And this is kind of coming out of left field as to why they now want a reduction in the fee. And they're also saying, hey, look, we don't need 4 months. If you give us $25,000 off, we can pay it immediately. So I question, if you can pay that immediately, why can't you pay the 141 immediately? We have got no explanation on that. I reached out to Bill McGowan, the chair of the Sewer Commission, and unfortunately we have not been able to connect yet, but I wanted to get a sense from him of the reasoning behind the Sewer Commission giving the $250,000 break, and whether it was solely based upon the 40B or if there were other reasons, and we just have not been able to connect yet. And separately, I don't know the percentage discount the Sewer Commission gave, because I don't know the total fee of what the 250 is. And I don't know how that relates to the $25,000 request they're making of us. I just don't know how the percentages match up. I don't know where they came up with $25,000, asking us to take that amount off. I do think affordable housing is a great thing. I am happy to see it happening. But again, here, this is catching us kind of like after months and months of dealing with this and without information yet from the sewer commission as to why they gave the discount. The other thing, John Hallen, is that they said, one of the arguments that they've made is that you felt it was important that we get water hooked up there right away for fire suppression reasons. As part of their argument for the payment plan. So I think I've laid out kind of the history of where we are. Lee or Steve, can you add anything to that?
Okay, yes, I do want to. When we renegotiated with them, Jason redid the whole fee structure, so it was lowered at that time from what we originally presented. And make note that at 10 o'clock today, the Sewer Commission is having a meeting about the agreement for sewer on the entire property. And they did start to build when they knew that they could not really get an active working septic system. And then there have been problems with them in the past about, Brendan can tell you about the different connection problems they had that they blamed us on, and it's been a mess. And frankly speaking, we just do not have the capacity to be a bank to finance them. If we can't get the payment, we have always worked on payment for service, for connection. And we have no capacity to do this. They could say, oh, well, whatever. And as John pointed out, occupancy permit, they were presuming that they could pay partial and would give them water, and then you wouldn't give them occupancy permit for maybe for the apartments. And they were alluding to something like that. I don't know how that would work, and I'm sure they would get around it. And they have a tendency to ignore certain things, shall we say. So we have to protect our current Cohasset customers because, you know, we do not service all of Cohasset. So it bears back on our Cohasset only customers to have these fees paid.
So I agree with Lee on that portion. The residents shouldn't have to have the burden of paying somebody else's project. And I'm assuming, you know, other utilities didn't provide any discounts as well to them. And one thing that's kind of a little disheartening is that all these months have gone by since I've been on the commission. They've come on once. You know, they had an opportunity between now and 10 o'clock to be here to kind of say, hey, this is what we're looking at. Or so, you know, they haven't attended. We've invited them, you know, and again, the fee is a fee that, you know, Jason came up with. And, you know, it'd be unfair if somebody else builds a building and, if you do one thing to somebody, you have to do it to somebody else. So, you know, and I've been looking for the public utility for 40Bs. I can't find where there's a discount.
This isn't a 40B, so everybody's clear. This is not a 40B. This is affordable housing. So
Just
the reason why I think that the Affordable Housing Commission wanted to do this was to prevent 40Bs. So by him deed restricting, it makes the whole property, all 20 units count towards our affordable housing count. So that's the value there. I'm just so everybody's clear, this is not a 40B.
Okay, so affordable housing. So where did they come? So where did the 25,000? I just want to know where the 25,000 came up from.
It is the percentage. I believe that the 250,000 is 18% of the proposed sewer connection fee, and therefore 25,000 is 18% of the water connection fee.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Howland there. If we give them a discount, will the town be giving them refunds on any permit fees that they have paid so far?
No, I'm not allowed to do that. That's that would have to come from the selectmen for any reduced fees. I have one to charge, but also just keep in mind here too, the 5 affordable units. I think it's two bedrooms and 3 one-bedroom units that are deed restricted. They do that up front. So that was part of the package. That was a requirement. They weren't offering to us. They didn't have a choice on this. So this isn't something that they're given. This is kind of required of them. So there's no, I think, to keep pushing forward for a reduction for something that they're required to do by statute is kind of, I think it's difficult for the Water Commission to give that relief to certain people. You can't really pick and choose who gets it as to why. So that's kind of just from our opinion.
I think, to be devil's advocate, though, the point of the letter that came from Steve Dahmer is they want the Water and Sewer Commission forever moving forward to offer a discount to affordable housing projects that are non-40B but friendly affordable projects. So I think that's the point. I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just telling you that that's the point. Was so like when Two Smith Place comes in and they have affordable units, they would look to get the same policy. It'd be basically a policy change for the town.
I think to do that, Jason, Steve would need to come meet with the commission, and we'd need to have a policy in place so everyone's treated fairly. This is kind of hitting us again at the last minute, and we don't have a policy in place. This letter said we'd like you to get a policy in the future. And I think he's welcome to come to our meetings and discuss that. But the policy we have right now is if anyone wants a water hookup, they got to pay for that water hookup in full.
And I agree with Lee that it should be a town-wide policy that all fees, including building inspection fees and all fees, would be reduced if it was an affordable project, theoretically.
Okay, can I ask John Hallen, do you have, if we were to make a motion to deny the request for a fee reduction, would you have any concern with that potentially impacting the timing on when they get water hooked up to the building? Just to caveat that, we did hook up the new fire hydrants to water. So those are hooked up for fire suppression. What's not hooked up is their internal sprinkler system.
Yes, again, going back, because I reviewed it with them, I would say 4 to 5 months ago, and I think it was, although I suggested that they pay the fee, at least get the sprinklers hooked up for safety. Yes, that's true, but I think the delay has proven that it wasn't about the sprinkler and safety, it was about the reduction of fees. So right. I think they're going to do what they're going to do.
Right.
I mean, just it's kind of proven that way,
right.
Because again, originally they didn't have a sprinkler permit. We had to go through the work was done. We had to go get the pull permit. So I think, I mean, the fees that you collect for these go back into the infrastructure and service of the water department. So it's not a it's not like they're hard fees. They're not it's not just because you want to charge someone a fee to process.
Right.
That's one thing. Because I mean, we do have other projects that will be coming before us that might out there, but they say it's got to determine what fees do we reduce, or how do we do it fairly. Without a policy in place, I think you really have to kind of stay with the current policy, and then it to pick and choose who gets relief and why, and oh, he's a good person, or this is a good cause. It kind of puts you guys in the gray area, I think. Just
right. Thank you, John. That's very helpful. Thank you for attending our meeting. I'm going to make a motion that we deny the request. I'm going to make two separate motions. The first motion is that we deny 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway's request for a $25,000 reduction in the water connection fee.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Second motion is I make a motion that we deny the request by 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway to have a payment plan over 4 months to pay the water connection fee that's already been agreed upon and is due.
I'll second.
Excuse me, I just have a question about that.
Sure.
If they decide that they want to pay it over 4 months, there's nothing to prevent them from doing it, but they do not get the water until it's all paid.
Correct. That's correct. But I think what they're saying is they want the water. My interpretation is what they're saying is we want the water now and we'll pay you over 4 months. And so my motion is rejecting a water connection before we get full payment.
Okay, well, I think we should be really more specific in that because we don't want to deny them the ability if they want to pay in installments and then get hooked up.
Okay. I'll revise the motion. Thank you, Leah. That's a good point. I make a motion that the water department not provide a water connection to 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway until the agreed water connection fee of $141,000 and some changes paid in full.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Anything else on 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway?
John, we should-
Before John goes, should we talk about 508?
Sure.
Yes, I have discussed with both the engineer and the owner about 508 coming back in front of the zoning board. Due to the, again, you guys are familiar with this, but they have 2 buildings, and during the pandemic, they moved some of the service work from the garage to the storage space. So I asked them to come back because in the original decision, I think all this service work were to be done in the garage area in the front and the storage work to be maintained in the storage area. But as I say, with some separation, they did kind of move the bays around and had some of the storage in the garage and some of the service work in the storage area. So we asked them to kind of come back for clarification for that. In addition, we've asked them to make plans to remove the trailer that they've had there, kind of beyond we're approaching the hopefully the end of the pandemic. So they've agreed to that. But again, John Cavanaro from Consulting is going to, he's back this week. He had been out of town for a couple of weeks, but he's putting forth the plans and the application of the zoning board.
Okay, I noticed that storage building was supposed to be for 16 cars. I don't know how they would fit 16 cars in there the way it was set up. They also have the lifts in there. Plus, they still have vehicles, cars, and construction equipment right on the wetland bank of Peppermint Brook. And I noticed in their application that they have diverted the drainage going right into the brook, which is our direct water supply. And being in the petroleum industry myself, I know the caustic effects of everything they're working with. So I'm very concerned about what they're putting in our water supply. I brought this up back last September and nothing has been done since. Concom told me, oh yeah, we know about it, but it's going to take them over a year to move the stuff. And this is our water supply. I can't understand what's going on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those points can be addressed at the zoning meeting in more detail, at least to get specific with, if further restrictions are needed or the existing restrictions are put in place.
But they are against the restrictions already having a vehicle on the grass. They were supposed to have all the vehicles off the grass. And that was months ago. And this was even a state restriction, and they're not abiding.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to move forward with them. As I say, I have been down there. I can stop by again and kind of read the zoning decision and start to do some more enforcement. But I thought it was best to get them in front of the board first of all, so we could kind of determine clearly what is allowed and what isn't.
Well, I would like to know where their septic system goes to, because looking at the initial articles, the Board of Health made a comment about their septic system, and where is the drainage from their buildings going?
Yes, I'm
Septic
not
system
sure.
is, the septic system up back, out behind, up on, basically next to the neighboring house up on that side street.
I think what John's making a good point. I think we should try to attend the zoning board meeting. I think Lee, you're very knowledgeable about this, and you should attend. Jason. if
Well, I know
you're-
I have requested to be informed of the date of the meeting already.
All right, and I will try to attend, and if we both attend, we'll notice there's a water commission meeting as well.
Joe,
One Go ahead, Steve.
I just want to kind of, before you, one of the suggestions I have for like, Mr. Hallen, Jason, or for the water commission is when these applications come in for new construction along what's called the watershed areas, can the water commission be notified so we can actually review, even though we're not going to do Brendan's job or Jason's job, but it's to take a oversight look besides having going through zone is us to take a look at it.
Yeah, so Steve, that when this came up originally and Lee put it out there, I looked into it, and yeah, it was determined that they had Brendan sign off on it.
Yep.
And that won't be the case in the future. And yes, we'll bring anything that's substantial to you guys as well, but it'll get reviewed by myself now, not Brendan.
Okay, yes, because I noticed that on the original application, it had Brendan's name as the sign off, because Brendan is the person who would be signing off on just the water connection. I remember when I first joined the board, I was going with the plant manager to the planning board meetings because that was part of our job. And with this new system that has been put in place to streamline everything, it seems like part of the group, namely us, have been left out.
Well, everybody was left out of that review. Lee, it didn't even get to Carl Hillstrom's desk. So we're gonna now have a new process where it'll come in here and we'll review it as a team internally. If you guys want to be involved, if it's in the watershed area, we'll let you know. But that's the process now. It won't be Brendan signing off in the future.
And
I think-
another
Yeah.
question I have, if I can just mention, is there seems to be overlapping jurisdiction between the zoning board of appeals, the Concom, and the water department over different aspects. And we've always questioned, what authority do we have over the watershed? And if it's not us, then who is the appropriate board or commission who has authority over the watershed and protecting it? So that's something, if it's not clear, I think maybe we should even discuss working with the zoning board of appeals, working with conservation commission, so we can all figure that out and have a cooperative approach.
Well, also, John, there was the incident when Cushing Road happened, that the planning board gave them a permit in direct opposition to our regulations that we stated at all of their meetings. So there is a lot of conflict in the town about what's going on.
And sometimes at the zoning meeting too, they can also direct the applicant as to other relief needed from other boards, not making that or granting the relief itself, but they could say, this does not meet the, that you meet all the regulations from other boards, and they can direct them to another board or other relief that is needed. It could be a conservation, it could be, so that they have that ability as well.
That's good to know.
I know, especially with Smith Place coming up, because that's a very touchy area in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think going forward is the water commission, obviously the water department should be actively involved with these applicants in peer review. Obviously, Jason would sign off on behalf. We should be notified and review on our own as well.
Yeah.
So.
Also in the permit process, that's available now too, as we see things that might need his attention, we'll, could send that up to him too, so it could be reviewed prior to a building permit being issued. If it's an area like, 508 Chief Justice Cushing Highway or other areas in town that might trigger that type of review.
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay.
John, thank you for attending our meeting. It's been very helpful having you here.
Well, thank you. If there's anything else you guys need, you can certainly reach out to us or through Jason, and we can get back with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.
Great.
Okay, so now we're on to Tetra Tech.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Andy Woodcock at Tetra Tech. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm here with James Christopher today to, number one, give you an update on the pilot study, and then number two, give you a presentation on the capital improvement study that we've done on the Lily Pond water plant. And I am going to share my screen and start my presentation here. Looks like I need permission to share my screen. I'm getting a reading here that says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Bye now.
There we go. All right. All right, everybody let me know when you can see my PowerPoint.
Yep, because
Mhm.
Excellent, excellent. So first off, just to introduce myself, I've been the project manager for the capital improvement study that we've been doing. So I'll be presenting to you those results. But first, I'm going to hand it over to James Christopher, who's been working on the pilot study, to kind of give you an update on that information. So James, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Andy, and good morning, everyone. First, for the GAC pilot study we did at Lily Pond, we did send a draft report to the city for review. We did have a comment on the carbon changeout frequency and therefore the operation and maintenance costs, which was discussed in your meeting earlier for another system. And we have basically gone back and done some additional analysis and determined that you should be able to meet compliance with a reduced carbon changeout frequency. Basically, we recommended 3 carbon contactors. It would consist of changing out one before the summer season, one in the middle of the summer season, and one in the end of the summer season if need be, and then letting it just operate in the biological mode during the winter time. And that should be able to provide sufficient removal. We are working on revising the report, and we will issue a final report that has that revised operating cost estimate in there. Then on the Elms Meadow pilot, we've been getting some updates from the lab, but last Thursday we received the full report with all the results of the testing. So we are currently reviewing that and putting it into an overall summary report. We also requested from the state an extension for the grant from the end of June, which was the original time frame, and they granted the extension through September 21st, which should give us plenty of time to complete the report and then complete the design, which is already underway and progressing pretty well, so that we should be able to meet all the requirements of the grant within the time frame. And that's pretty much the update. I can answer any questions if there are any.
What is the cost?
The
cost of the Elms
Um,
Meadow?
for Elms Meadow,
Yes.
sorry, we don't have that number yet. Part of the laboratory testing we were doing is to get the final sizing of the vessels and the amount of media. So we're not quite at a point with the design where we have a reasonably firm estimate yet.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then I'll move into a presentation on the capital improvements program. So right now we've completed the draft report and submitted it to the city for review. And we just met and got comments back and have been discussing those comments and incorporating them into our analysis. The basic steps that we went through was, number one, we identified all the assets that we were going to review as part of this. We conducted on-site reviews. We looked at it from a mechanical equipment perspective, kind of the process perspective. We also had architects look at it, structural engineers, electrical and SCADA engineers, and also HVAC and plumbing. So we had a lot of different disciplines looking at it. One of the things that we did for the mechanical equipment was a business risk evaluation, which is important in helping us prioritize when we're going to recommend making changes to your critical equipment that operates the treatment facilities. And I'll go into that a little bit in some detail here in a minute. After that, we identified the renewal and replacement projects. So once again, the purpose of this is to evaluate the condition of the existing facilities and identify what needs to be replaced and when. Then we developed cost estimates and we came up with a prioritized 20-year capital improvements plan for the Lily Pond water plant. So first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about the condition assessment. When we do that, we look at it in a lot of different ways. I already mentioned that we had a number of disciplines during the site review that were taking a look at everything. Actually, because of the pandemic, we were limiting our staff out there. We had a couple people out there and we actually live streamed it to the rest of our experts at Tetra Tech, which worked very well. We were able to collaborate with the on-site staff, with all of our discipline leaders. We had our structural engineer go into several of the process basins. They were offline because we did this during the wintertime. So we were able to get some really good snapshots of what things look like inside basins that are normally full of water. And another thing we did was we looked at all the available reports and documents. And all of this kind of comes together to give us a good idea of what each piece of equipment, each asset out there, what its general condition is. So we look at it from a bunch of different assets or aspects. We take this condition and we basically score it on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being it's a brand new or really good condition asset, and 5 being it's non-functioning or is in very poor condition. And we use this scale along with the estimated service life of all of these assets to kind of give us an idea of how long we think that it's going to be able to continue operations. And so that helps us a lot in how we schedule these things out. as far as when the improvements need to be made. So for the mechanical equipment, so I'm talking about the pumps and the mixers and the chemical feed systems and the things that actually do the treatment of the raw water to provide the potable water. We also did a criticality assessment. So basically, we want to look at each one of these pieces of equipment and understand if it fails, what's going to be the impact on the system. So we held a workshop with the operating staff, the guys at Woodard and Curran. We spent about 2 hours kind of just discussing with them, okay, what makes a piece of equipment critical for you? What is the criteria that would drive a critical asset for you? And we came up with 4 criteria: the capacity that would be affected if the asset went down, the operational and water quality impact if the asset went down. Is there a backup or a redundant piece of equipment? And finally, if the asset does go down, how long does it take to get it back up and running? What's our recovery time? So we spent a lot of time talking specifically about what it means when each of these happen. And we came up with another 1 to 5 scale, where 1 is if the asset fails, it doesn't impact operations very much, versus a 5, which is there is a significant impact to our system if that particular asset should go down. So with the equipment, we're looking at number 1, the condition, which we also define as the likelihood of failure. And we also look at the criticality, which we also define as the consequence of failure. So we take those 2 together and basically multiply them. And we get what is basically, in the industry, it's called a business risk evaluation score. And once again, this is a way of just quantifying the risk that helps us prioritize when we make these improvements or need to make the adjustments to the equipment. So we got 2 scales of 1 to 5. So we've got a possible range of 1 to 25 for a risk score, with 1 being very low risk and a 25 being essential to plant operation and in poor condition. So we take that score and it helps us prioritize. And once again, this is just for the treatment equipment, when we're going to want to make these actions address the equipment. So anything that received a score from 20 to 25, we said that's high priority. That's something that you want to address within the next 2 years because it has a poor condition and also has a high impact on the facilities. Anything from a 15 to a 20, we say needs to be addressed in the next 5 years. Anything below 15, we basically just say for right now, replace it based on its average service life, when it needs to be replaced just based on its average service life. And also as a caveat there, this type of condition assessment, we recommend that you do it every 5 years or so, just so you can kind of keep tabs on the wear and tear of the facilities and how the assets are actually performing. Average service life is exactly that. It's an average. It's kind of a plug number that we use for lack of anything else. And when we do these condition assessments, it helps us inform us about what the real wear and tear is on the equipment and how we may want to reprioritize the asset replacement needs. So for the mechanical equipment, I want to flash up on the screen here. Here's what we found our highest risk assets were. So once again, these are the things that are a combination of poor condition and high impact on the facilities. So we identified raw water pump 3, filter backwash pump 1, sedimentation basins, all as being 20 or greater. And in talking with the operations staff, none of this was unknown. In fact, their input actually contributed a lot to us actually putting this in here. And a lot of them are already being addressed. Filter backwash pump 1 actually got a score of 5 because they had just pulled number 2 and were rehabbing it and realized in what poor condition it was. So we were able to use that information to adjust our score here. Coming further down from that, the baffles on the rapid mix basins, the wastewater sludge pumps, and a couple places, actually just one place in the actual plant piping, we're all in that 15 to 20 category, which is where we would want to slot that in for making some type of improvement within the next 5 years. So that's our basic methodology that we ran with this. And before, and I know I've kind of thrown a lot out there, so before I go any further in my presentation, let me just pause and see if there are any questions or if anybody has any comments they'd like to make.
I have a question. So you looked at
Sorry.
kind of what we need to do over the next 20 years, I think you're saying?
Correct.
One big question we've always had is, can our existing plant continue to operate for 20 years? Or do we need a new plant? Is that something you looked at, or do you believe, based upon your analysis, this plant can, if we maintain it, continue to operate for 20 years?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the end result of this report is this is how much money you need to spend to keep it running for another 20 years. I mean, that's kind of our ultimate answer for you. Now, what we did not do is look at alternatives that would be outside of this plant. So, you know, if you're looking at, there might be other mitigating external factors that would help force that decision of whether to build a new plant or keep investing in this one. But this at least gives you that number of what it's going to take to run it for the next 20 years.
And what is that number about before we get just jumping to the end? How much we're going to spend in 20 years?
We're estimating about $8 million. And that doesn't include things like, and I'll get to this later, not to spoil the ending here, but it does not include things like the whatever comes out of the pilot study, those improvements that need to be made. It doesn't include, this is purely replacing existing assets as they are. So things like the pilot study, modifications to your sludge handling equipment, some of those kind of external items are not incorporated in here. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of like where the real scope is of the dollars here we're talking about.
Okay. And the other thing that you can't predict, of course, is change in regulations that could impact all of this.
Absolutely. In fact, yeah, that's another one we mentioned. The aluminum discharge to Lily Pond is another thing that we mentioned as something that's out there that affects the cost of the plant, but it's kind of beyond the scope of our work here.
Okay. That was helpful. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So having done our condition assessment, our site inspections, it came time to actually put together the capital improvement program for you. So first of all, let's talk about the timing. We've got a 20-year horizon here. We broke it up based on that business risk evaluation of stuff that needs to be done within 2 years that we feel like is critical to maintaining the operations, mitigating your risks associated with that. And then the second segment of that would be the 3 to 5 year period. Everything after that, we kind of did in 5-year chunks. So we have a 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 15 to 20. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, you know, we're doing visual inspections today, and we're making assumptions about what needs to be done to the plant. And as you get farther out into the future, our clarity on that changes quite a bit. So it didn't make a lot of sense to split a hair between should this be done in year 16 or year 17, when we just really don't have the level of detail to make that kind of distinction. So we've kind of done these in 5-year bins. When it gets to developing our opinion of costs, we drew on a number of sources. We called on manufacturers and got some quotes for similar equipment. Tetra Tech's a nationwide company, so we've got similar recent project bids on similar type plants, standard unit pricing, kind of our own internal institutional knowledge kind of all went into developing our costs. And these costs include equipment, materials, and installation. Also, where it's required, it also includes engineering and permitting. If there's something in there that actually requires engineering and re-permitting, we made sure we accounted for that. And we also included a 30% contingency factor. We're kind of swooping in here based on visual inspections at, 10,000 feet. So we want to make sure that we have a contingency factor there for any details that just didn't rise up to our level of analysis. And the other thing that I want to leave you with, and this is very important because we're talking about 20-year costs, is that these estimates are in 2021 dollars.
For expansion.
So the impact of inflation has not been rolled into what I'm going to show you. So the next thing I want to do is, there's a lot of detail in the report that I'm not going to go through, but I do want to, for each of our major disciplines, kind of show you the highlights, the big dollar items that we found and that we have scheduled in the capital improvements program. And then I'll show you the overall program. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through this a little bit step by step. So we look at the mechanical equipment. Basically, all of those high risk items that we have here, we have replaced within the next 2 years. The biggest dollar item there is replacing the chain and flight mechanism on the sedimentation basin. So that is something that we see. It's a very critical process. When we had our discussions with the folks at Woodard Curran, it didn't seem like there had been any rehabilitation that had been done on that in their memory. So we immediately flagged that as something that needs to be looked at. The next big major item that you'll see there is actually the filters. You just recently went through a filter replacement cycle, changing out the media and inspecting the under drains. And when we get out into pushing towards 15 years or so, it's going to be time to take a look at that again, maybe replace it. We've kind of budgeted for worst case, replacing the launders, maybe replacing the under drains. So you have a big cash outlay there for that particular item in the 11 to 5 year time frame. Next, let's talk about the electrical and the SCADA system. Your SCADA system is old and it's outdated. It's running on software that is a couple of generations back. Let's say it's like, Windows 7, Windows 8 to compare to something that maybe we can all relate to here. So as you get new equipment coming in, there's the danger that you run into non-compatibility of the new equipment being able to interface with your SCADA system. So one of the things we're recommending is that you update that software and rework the SCADA system. And the system itself, the PLCs are old for most pieces of equipment. There's not a lot of room for expansion. There's not a lot of, we call them IO modules or IO ports. There's not a lot of redundant IO ports that let you expand the system or to, if one goes bad, be able to use another one. So we're recommending some pretty major upgrades to your SCADA system within the next 5 years. Another thing I'll mention, and you guys are already on top of it, is also cybersecurity. Right now, it's not particularly secure with the Ethernet connection that you have. In talking with the Woodard and Curran guys, they're kind of already on top of that with installing a VPN, but we've noted that also. The next big item when we're talking about electrical and SCADA is when we get out into that 6 to 10 year time frame, just from an average service life standpoint, a lot of that switchgear should be at the end of its average service life. So we're recommending a replacement of a lot of the switchgear and MCCs out there. And if possible, redesigning the electrical room. We recognize there's not a lot of space there, but right now the switchgear is kind of occupying the same space, some office space, which is not typically standard. So one of the things we wanted to at least throw out there is that maybe redesigning that workspace might also be of benefit. Moving on to structural, you guys are actually in really good shape structurally based on our assessment. And I think this one probably more than anything speaks to the do you want to keep the plant or not from a renewal standpoint. If there were major structural issues here, then I think the remedial costs would probably drive things to where maybe you would want to make that kind of decision. But what we found, the general structure itself seems to be in pretty good shape. There were a few leaks that we identified. They'd been identified before. They don't seem to be major. They've been patched before. They're leaking through a little bit again. We're recommending that those get addressed again. But a lot of the costs that we have here is, some rusting structural supports for the equipment that needs to get replaced. New coating system for the interior of the basins. In some areas, we found that it was coming off and needs to get replaced. But really not a lot of costs on the structural side, which is a good thing. Then we get to the architectural. Some moderate dollar numbers here, and it's great when you talk to the architects, because they're looking at floors and windows and doorknobs and stuff. So there's a lot of detail in each one of these 5-year increments. But one thing we did see, at least in the 5-year horizon, is that all of the windows and doors need to be resealed. Just kind of the exterior envelope of the building is old. It needs to be reevaluated. The eye wash stations need to get replaced. Replacing the sinks in the lab area, a lot of mix and match type things. When we get further on out into the time horizon here, in years 11 through 5, we're recommending completely replacing all the cabinet work and equipment in the laboratory, because it's going to reach the end of its useful life. And a couple of things that I don't have on here, but I do think is important, and I should have put it on, I just didn't. The current HVAC system, the boilers and the air conditioner system and the air handler are all at the nearing the end of their useful life. So that's another thing that we're recommending replacement on.
Andy,
Also,
one note, I know we had talked about this briefly. That first item, it doesn't include sealing the outside of the building, right? Of the concrete.
not the concrete, no.
Can you add that to it? Because unless I'm mistaken, I think that does need to be done, repointing of the concrete blocks and resealing.
Sure.
The last time it was done was a decent amount of time ago.
Okay. Will do. The other thing I don't have a slide for is the civil site work. There are 2 items there that popped up. Number 1 is site security, which, once again, that's something that everybody's aware of, with the public being able to access the facilities. And there are already plans in place to put in a security gate. And also the parking lot and driveway pavement. The top of it needs to be milled and resurfaced. So those were the 2 big things that came out of our civil and our site work analysis.
One other question that came in from Paul Rue, who's Woodard and Curran regional manager. Did we look at the aeration system that was discontinued? I don't know if we did or not.
No, not, where would that be? Where would that have been in the system?
It used to go out into the pond. So they basically created a grid of aeration tubes out from the intake structure and aerated.
Yeah. No, we didn't look at that. Yeah.
From what I understand, and everybody can correct me if I'm wrong, is it was turned off fairly quickly after it was turned on because it created issues with the water quality. And I don't know if that's due to stirring stuff up on the bottom of it, stirring up sediments basically, and not waiting long enough for it to reach equilibrium. But
yeah, I could certainly see that being the issue, but no, that's something that never came up when we were identifying assets for the treatment plant.
And Paul, you can ask your questions yourself too if you want. I'm going to ask another one for him. For the replacement of the chain and flight sludge system, does that include the sludge valve and mud valve replacement and automation?
It does not. I believe those actually were replaced this year. I believe that was the work that was going on when we were doing our inspections, the replacement of those sludge valves. And we can verify that with the Woodard Curran guys. If it's not, then that's something that needs to go into our analysis.
It's correct. They were replaced. Yeah, the deep ones were replaced. The middle ones.
Okay.
Deep ones were replaced. The middle ones were not.
I'm sorry, Fred, I didn't quite hear it. Did you say they were replaced?
The deep ones were replaced, the middle ones were not.
Okay, all right. So we can add that in there.
And Paul said he's in his car and it's loud, so he doesn't want to unmute. So Paul, you can ask your questions away and I will read them for you.
All right. Shall I move forward?
Keep on going.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up. Here's the whole ball of wax. So I have this laid out in our 5-year buckets. We are looking at a total of 7.889, probably easy enough just to round it up to 8 million, that we've identified in investment that needs to be done in the plant to keep it operational for the next 20 years. So I'll caveat this with a couple of things. We just did visual inspection. We didn't do any invasive or huge operational testing. I would also say that this is a snapshot in time. And as I said before, generally when you go in and you do these condition assessments, you like to take a look every 5 years or so just to see how things are. Some equipment out there may not have, may live way beyond its expected service life simply because it's not put in operation that much. It has a very light duty. Other things might be under very heavy duty or different environmental conditions and will degrade faster. That's why it's always important to kind of go through and re-update and re-look at and refine these things as you move forward. And for my final slide, just on findings and recommendations, overall for its age, the water treatment plant's in good condition. It's been maintained. In talking with the Woodard and Curran guys, there was ongoing maintenance while we were out there. There is planned maintenance and replacement that they have going into next year. So, there definitely seems to be, good maintenance activities that are going on. As I said before, we're estimating about $8 million of investment just in renewal and replacement over the next 20 years. Cyclical condition assessments like this one, do it every 3 to 5 years. I think you're probably good at 5 years. Your critical equipment, maybe you want to look at a little more, in a little more detail, a little more frequently. And as I mentioned earlier, the things that came up that were kind of tangential and related to the plant itself, but not necessarily reflective of renewal and replacement, are the disinfection byproducts improvements, result of the pilot study, developing more efficient solids handling. Doesn't cost quite so much, and also addressing the aluminum requirements that have recently surfaced regarding the filter water discharge. And with that, I'm done with my presentation. I'm happy to take any more questions or comments from anyone.
Andy, what would be an estimated cost for updating this in 5 years?
I would say if you're going to do it in 5 years, it would probably be about the same amount. And the reason I say that is that we've kind of laid a foundation for you, but then you got 5 years of consultant inflation on top of that. So I think probably if you're budgeting roughly the same amount that you did for this, they should kind of offset each other.
John, you're on mute.
Okay, I have a question. Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, when the plant was built, there was the ability for expansion to another 1 million gallons a day processing. Is that still available?
I saw that. And for the life of me, looking at the layout of the plant and not having any conceptual idea about how they were going to do that, I couldn't tell you. So yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for that. I would say
okay.
Generally from what I know about the site, depending on what you do with sludge, you may have the room to make an expansion, but I couldn't do anything more than just kind of a guess on that one.
Okay, thank you. I'll see if I can contact the engineer on that.
Andy, John Steinmetz, that was a great presentation, very helpful. My question is, would you be willing to make that same presentation before capital budget and the select board? I think they'd be interested in this information. And first of all, is that something you could do?
Absolutely. I'm at your disposal as far as, what you require as far as presentations, certainly.
Would there be any additional cost to doing that?
I would have to get back with Tony and talk about that. I'll be honest with you, it's outside of our current scope, but that doesn't mean that maybe we could come to some type of agreement.
Okay, because I think this would be very important. They're going to have their own questions for you on it. So I don't know if Lee or Steve or Jason have any comments on that, but are you in agreement that this could be something that would be helpful for capital budget, the select board?
I agree, but the piece we need to do before that, John, is I started yesterday working this into our 10-year capital plan, and how we would prioritize that. Because that's going to be the first question is, how does this affect the 10-year plan?
Right.
So just as a side note, we spend about $100,000 a year in maintenance at the plant. So some of these projects that are in the 50 to, under $50,000 range would just fit into the regular maintenance, pump replacements and whatnot. So I'm trying to determine what's going to go above the line and into the plan versus routine maintenance type of a repair. So I think we need to do that piece first, personally, because I know that's going to be the first question is, how does this affect the plan? And some of the bigger upgrades, the nice part is like that $1 million filter upgrade that fits into the plan the year that we took off the $25 million new water treatment plant. So it is actually, it fits in. Some of those bigger upgrades that are in the 5 to 10 year range would fall into that year we had planned on a $25 million upgrade.
Lee and Steve, any thoughts?
Well, I was wondering, I would presume that we would have had some of these upgrades meshing in with our 5 to 10 year capital plans, because they seem like they are basically a lot of maintenance. And the other question I have is, I'm a little concerned about the SCADA system because I thought we were upgrading to something that was newer than what we had.
Yeah, let me jump in on that with the SCADA system. You're exactly right. We identified it. There are things in flight that you currently have. And so, I think there might be a little bit of overlap in there as far as what you currently have moving in flight versus what we're estimating here. And we can refine that.
So, John, I agree with you. This would be good for, for the board of selectmen, also for the public to understand, what goes into the rate, these little add-ons, which obviously we know it's not little, but this is all part of the rate structure and the costs of operation. I think this is actually, it's a good thing to present, definitely to the board of selectmen, capital budget, when the time is ready, right? To do something.
Okay. If we're in agreement, then Jason, if you can work on revising our capital budget plan, as you mentioned, and then coordinating with Andy and Christina and the board of selectmen and capital budget for us to present this.
Okay, excuse me, I think we should add advisory.
Okay, yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. It'd be great if we can
Joint session.
have joint session if possible, so that Andy doesn't have to do this 3 times. But I think you make a great point, Lee. I think it should be advisory as well.
That was very helpful. Thank you. And got a lot out of it.
And yeah, Andy, you can give us a copy of this PowerPoint, right? We can then post this at a minimum on the town website.
Sure. Yeah, I'll email you a copy as soon as I get offline here, Jason.
Thank you.
That was helpful, Andy. Thank you very much. These are questions that we've been dealing with for a long time, and you helped us get some greater direction on this.
And
Well,
the The other piece too, on the follow-up on the SCADA, is a lot of the SCADA work previously was focused on outside the building and not inside the building. So there has been some discussions internally about upgrading some of the PLCs inside the plant and providing for additional IO as well. So it has been on the list, but it's not been done yet.
Yes, I presume that we were eliminating our out-of-date switches and whatever.
Talking about the Windows 8 SCADA system.
I mean, I would leave that question to Steve Rose at some point, Woodard Currents SCADA person, but we can have that discussion. There is a scope hanging out there of work to be done in the plant.
Could I just ask one question of Andrew? The on the flight, it seemed like the biggest ticket item on that was the the chain and flight system for the sedimentation basin. How much of that is the actual equipment, and how much of that is labor?
I'd have to go back and take a look. Honestly, I don't have that detail in front of me right now. But I will say this: we were able to go into we were able to look at the basin with pictures. That wasn't one that we were able to safely send our structural guy through. So we did not get a good up-close look at those chain and flight mechanisms. So a lot of our analysis and the conclusion that we drew from it was from the fact that it doesn't seem like that there has been any rehab work done on it. The guys at Woodard and Curran couldn't recollect that a lot had been done. So in our minds and in our perception, we're like, this is a very old piece of equipment and it is critical to the operation of the plant. So it immediately went high up on our radar as far as replacement. Now, as you move forward into actually implementing that project, I would say definitely the first step is to get a manufacturer out there that can get in there and test it and give you guys a true condition assessment, maybe even do some destructive testing or something, I don't know, check the links and truly verify that condition. So I want to be upfront with you that it's kind of limited to, the level of work that we did, but definitely this is something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, we discussed internally, once the peak season's over, having somebody come in and inspect those based on that recommendation.
Great.
Right. And if we have any pictures maybe from when we just did the
That's what I was going to just ask Carl, if anybody took pictures of that basin when the tube settlers were being replaced.
Yeah, that was like last year, right?
Now, that was the year I started.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. That was very comprehensive in a digestible format.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joe, I have no other questions. That was very good. Thank you to Brian. It was very comfortable. It was very easy to understand.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure presenting with you guys, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Right, and we will be in touch. Jason and we'll coordinate with those follow-up meetings with the other boards in town.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care.
So now we go to financials. Is Don with us today? No.
No,
Any
he
sense-
was on vacation and he just got back today, but he responded that he was not going to be able to attend when I sent the invite out.
Okay.
Okay, we haven't gotten any information right at all from him.
Well,
I
he had a
didn't,
meeting already scheduled for today, so, and he
no,
was,
but I mean, he hasn't sent us any paperwork, any information about June. We have nothing, right? He hasn't sent us any backup. I have not seen anything.
he's been on vacation.
Oh, he's been on vacation okay,
Yeah.
for some, thank you.
Okay, yeah, well, we can find out next meeting. It's nice to get all the rain and replenish our supply, but also at the same time, this is the time of year that we get most of our money in through irrigation. And I would assume people aren't irrigating as much as they generally do. So that could impact our financials. But anyways, we'll find out more.
Brenda, were you able to compare the billing from this quarter as to last year's?
No, because I just got my numbers from North Cohasset, so I haven't been able
Okay.
to do anything yet. I'm still running my reports prior to getting anything done like that.
I wasn't sure how far behind we were because of differences with Ware River. Because I know you're very good on those things.
Hoping to have numbers by the end of the week,
The
but
biggest thing we can say is typically at this time of year, Brenda, they be usually working till 8, 9 o'clock at night. And they're leaving at 3:30, 4 o'clock due to the fact that when no one's using water. So, and that has happened after the bills went out. So I think the spring billing is probably going to be normal. The next one's going to be the one that gets affected. I'm not speaking for anybody, but Brenda, I would assume that you'd probably agree to some extent.
So we may not be seeing too many people in tier 3.
well, this this billing period is from April 1st till July 1st.
Right.
So
From what Jason was saying about what's currently happening.
yeah, what's currently happening,
During our, yes.
not running as long. We're not producing as much water. So yeah, and people are shutting off their irrigation systems. So
Yeah.
hopefully this quarter that we're going to be billing for will be good, because I think
Right.
people turned on their irrigation systems early because we started running longer earlier this year. So hopefully it will all work its way out and we'll get a stretch of dry weather.
Well, we'll see the numbers when they come out. How's that?
That's
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Okay, excuse me. I see the executive session is coming up in 3 minutes. Do we have to reschedule that?
Actually, I have a question. It's Fred. Paul Rue just texted me. He was wondering if you could adjourn into executive session so he can join because he is in a business unit meeting. And then you could go back into regular session when we're done.
John, you're on mute.
John, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
I would suggest what we do is go into executive session and we table the rest of the matters unless there's anything that we need to talk about today until our next meeting.
Okay, the only question I have is about the testing, because Woodard and Kern was going to be possibly doing some testing at 508 for hydrocarbons and petrochemicals so that we have a basis for when we go to the ZBA meeting to see if there is actual pollution coming from that site.
Okay, I'm not certain, this is Carl,
Mhm.
certain where you would like to do the testing. And maybe Jason can weigh in. Is there a point in the brook near there that we would sample?
I thought we discussed that we're going to sample right before the station where it's daylighted going into the pipe right before the station, and then
Just
sample where it daylights again after the Tupelo pump station. Those would be the pre and post site locations.
So we're talking two sampling sites. And I guess the question is, what do we want to test for? Number one, I suppose, would be hydrocarbons.
What I'm going to suggest is that Lee, Jason, and Carl and Fred discuss this. It doesn't need to be a meeting, and that way we can get into our executive session.
The one question we have is how much money do you guys want to spend? Carl, you have an estimate on per site, per round?
It's totally dependent on what we're going to test for. So hydrocarbons, heavy metals. I'm thinking probably in the range of $500. But if we add the synthetic organics, herbicides, pesticides, that's another 800.
I think it's worth it.
Agree with John.
Yeah,
All
because
right.
we could just do it one time just to see whether or not where we are.
I think we need the information like Lee said for the meeting. So I make a motion, we approve the expenses Carl just discussed for the testing.
Per site.
All in
Okay, I don't know,
favor?
herbicides and pesticide, I would do petrochemicals. Okay, I agree. Second, I agree.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Thank you.
John, probably one more motion to table the rest.
Motion to table the rest of the agenda items till our next meeting.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Now
How
we
does this
just-
work? That we go to executive session?
All right, so you're gonna end this meeting and then I'm gonna open up the next one.
I
And we'll,
think you have to say you're going into executive session and then you're going to end the meeting after executive session's over.
And then we have to get out of here and rejoin a Zoom? Okay.
Same link?
No, it's a different link.
no, the one for 10:30 is executive session, so we're gonna click on that one now,
All right.
once we get out of this, so,
All right, make a motion, we adjourn our regular meeting.
yep, 10:30, going into executive.
Go to exec. Yeah, John, you gotta make a motion
Okay.
to go to. exec-
Leaving. Yeah, make a motion that we leave our regular scheduled meeting, go into executive session and end this meeting.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, leave meeting.